Students, ladies and gents, welcome. I have a special guest today. Super excited, former Eagle, successful and living the dream. Well, I hope you're living the dream, Kendall. But for those who don't know, this is the wonderful Kendall Riechman, interacted and founder on LinkedIn. We professionally linked up and super excited to see all the things you're doing in that. But more importantly, Kendall, we're excited to hear about what you do on the daily in that. So if you don't mind, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what your job is and maybe in the day in the life of Kendall is like for you.
Of course. So my name's Kendall Riechman. I graduated from Sandberg back in 2013. And right now I'm working in Houston, Texas as a senior project engineer. And essentially I work in construction. So I work for a general contractor, and I can tell you a little bit what that means. When a building gets built, I work for the company that you call when you need to gather up all the workers, and I manage those people.
Okay.
So my day-to-day job, at least currently right now, no construction has started. I'm still in the process of trying to award contracts to people to, we want to pay people to build this project. So I have to talk with tons of different companies, go through a bunch of sets of drawings, estimate what I see in the project, how much material of each item, and how much each of that's going to cost. That's kind of high level, and we can delve into the details, but I come into the office, I interact with my team. There will be a lot of collaboration based on what deliverables are required of us, that week or that month. It's a lot of ebb and flow, so there are some weeks where we're super busy, meetings all day, and then there are other weeks where it's kind of on our owners or on the people that we're trying to hire to get information to us, and we're kind of waiting around.
Wow. So I think I'm safe to assume you talk to a huge variety of different people with different skills for these big jobs.
Yeah. So the seat that I'm in right now, I talk to a lot of project managers who work in their offices, but depending on what phase of construction we're in, I could be talking to the people that actually work out on the construction site and who are there day in, day out, actually, building drywall, or I should say building the building and putting up drywall, laying concrete and all that stuff. So.
Oh my goodness. So with I guess my natural question would be into this, what was your background in order to get into this? And was this a lot of learning on the job about what goes into construction, or is this something that you were preparing for? I just love to hear how it works from the transition from college to work and how that all works out.
Yeah, definitely. And please let me know if I'm using lingo that's obviously new to you or potentially the students. But I was a civil engineer in college. I didn't start out that way in college. I actually came in as an undecided, undeclared engineer, and I had the intent to go to medical school, and I changed my major my junior year, which is kind of late, but I changed my major and decided to do construction. I've always been interested in architecture and things like that, and as an engineer, the technical stuff appealed to me. For my job, you do not need to be an engineer, but I was prepared in the sense that I had studied concrete and steel and theoretical physics and dynamics and things like that. So I was exposed to these things in college, and I went to the University of Illinois, and that, by the time I graduated, was ranked #1 in civil engineering in the country. So we bring in a lot of construction companies who aren't necessarily looking to hire you to do civil engineering work, but know that you are qualified, not overqualified, to work in construction. Our university has a reputation of turning out students that are hardworking, good at problem solving, and have really good work ethic. So I think a lot of companies want workers with those qualities. So I actually, because I transferred so late, but I ended up going to grad school and getting a master's in civil engineering. And in between my grad school and senior year, did an internship. And that was my first look at being part of a construction company.
Oh, you went to school, you changed your major, you got into engineering in that. And it sounds like U of I brings in a lot of companies, people trying to poach you and take you from that area and plug you into their company in that. So after your 4-year your degree to graduate, you said you then did an internship while also going for your master's. Is that how that works, or?
Yeah, so it was kind of a unique program. It wasn't open to people that didn't go to the University of Illinois. It was specific to juniors, seniors in the civil engineering program at the University of Illinois. So in my first semester of my senior year, I applied, and it's a pretty quick application process. You still find out that first semester, and then you get started right away. You start doing meetings with the grad school participants and students, and you go on a couple international trips and a couple national trips. And the goal of the program is to expose you to more construction in the industry, and not so much in textbooks and paper and theory and things like that. They want to get you hands-on and get you exposed to people that work in those fields. So when I found out about this program, I was like, that sounds like me. Like, I just switched into this major. I don't know that I'm necessarily the most qualified yet. I don't know as much as students that have been doing it all 4 years or knew they wanted to do this from the beginning of college. So I applied, got in, and then happened to land an internship that following summer. I honestly think it was just luck. I remember interviewing and saying, like, hey, right now I'm not taking these classes, but next summer I will be taking these classes. So they trusted me, and it maybe wrote a little bit off of the University of Illinois reputation on that. That was after my junior year. Had my first internship. They really had to take a chance on me because I hadn't taken all those civil engineering classes yet. So then going into my senior year, I had one internship under my belt, and that's when I was in the program officially.
Now, when you did your first internship, do you feel like you took in and learned a lot as opposed to just the classroom?
I did. So I worked for a concrete company. So that's one of the contractors who, as a project engineer right now, I would call to give me quotes and estimates and numbers. So I worked for one of the smaller companies, and they gave me a lot of responsibility. I kind of dove in with my head first, and they tested me. And my first day, I was there till 6 p.m. just working nonstop. So I was able to learn a lot because they allowed me to take on a lot of responsibility.
That's a really great point. I'm glad you brought that up too. Sometimes the size of the company depends on how much they do allow you to delve in versus bigger. So really good for students to think about when they are looking for internships. The size might make your experience slightly different on what you're exposed to. So I love that you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. My second internship was a lot different than the first because of that. The first company was small. There were 7 employees that sat in the office daily, whereas my second internship was with an international company headquartered in Australia, tons of satellite offices, tons of employees, thousands. So big difference. But I was lucky enough with that second internship to have a project manager who was dedicated to, making sure that I had a successful internship where I could actually learn skills and I wasn't just pushing paper essentially and getting coffees. He wanted me to learn. So he also gave me a little bit more responsibility than a typical intern.
That's fantastic. So with these different experience and internships, do you feel like that was creating more connections and giving you more confidence to eventually, once you were done with your master's program, that to get out there and do exactly what hopefully you want to do?
Yeah, I would say the first one kind of made me nervous because I had no benchmarks. I wasn't in the major yet. I was the only intern for the first half of the summer. So I was like, am I even good at this? Like, do I like this? I really didn't have an idea. And by the end of the summer, once the other intern came in and I kind of could see like, okay, he's also worried about X, Y, Z, and I'm not the only one. Like, it's okay that I don't know that yet. I could kind of level myself out and say, okay, I'm not expected to be a manager yet. That's good, and kind of got to balance out my expectations. The next summer made me think like, yes, this is what I wanted to do. I love this company. I love these projects. I was working in downtown Chicago, so I was constantly visiting the ongoing projects, which happened to be high-rise, high-end luxury residential buildings. So it felt really cool. I liked being in the city, and I had a really great team. So it kind of just all worked out that I fell in love with what I was doing at that time and pursued it and ended up working at that company full time after graduation.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then did you eventually transplant to Houston where you are now?
Yes, and that was actually kind of sad because I really liked that job. I have great things to say about that company, the projects that they do, but I actually was in a long distance relationship for 2 years, and it kind of came time to prioritize and say, is this worth taking a risk and moving, or do I need to end this? And I kind of felt that it was the right relationship, and so I up and found a job in Houston, Texas, for another company that I have friends that work for this company in other cities across the U.S. And the company I work at now also came to U of I and did the career fairs there. So it's a company I was familiar with the name. I had been on one of their projects before and just had an opening on their website, and I applied and got the job.
Kendall, I appreciate your transparency on that, because I think sometimes we ignore when we're picking a career or a job, our personal lives do intertwine with our life and job. And we talk as students like, are you willing to work weekends or nights? And having a specific jobs fits into certain lifestyles and that. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's not just a job. It also has to meld well with your life or where your life is in that. So that was cool of you to mention. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think that it's one of the reasons I chose this career and this path was because of the mobility of the job. In contrast, my parents are dentists, which is another great career for different reasons. But once you build that patient base and you have an office or you work somewhere, it's not typical to have the flexibility to move to a different city. And growing up, I was full of wanderlust. I loved traveling, and I just thought, like, wow, I would hate to be stuck in one city for my whole life. So I wanted to do something where that didn't matter, and it really doesn't. If I wanted to move to California, New York, like Europe, anywhere, I could do that with this job.
Such a great point. Yes, not only how life interacts, but you're right. Some jobs are sedentary. You're there and you built your program and you don't want to leave it because that would affect your job. Great point. Wow. Thank you for bringing that up. I never even thought about that. That's wonderful advice and ideas when students are thinking about careers.
Yeah.
When we look into your daily job in that, it's obvious that, you said you had quite a few meetings, you're working with different people in that. What are some skills that you feel help you excel in your job that maybe students could benefit from knowing, like, oh, these are things I should work on?
So being in management, it's essentially management. So I'm in construction management, but the same goes if it's business management or something else. You have to have attention to detail, in my opinion. Specifically with construction and what I do, I get a set of construction drawings from an architect, and then I have to go through each page, each section cut, each detail, and I have to make sure that nothing gets through the cracks. So not only am I looking through details, but then once I relay information to contractors below me or that I have to hire, there are just a lot of things that cannot go missed, like in terms of what scope they need to cover, billing, costs. It's very much something that you have to stay organized with.
Sure.
Because of the detail level, but also because of how many people you have to deal with. I think there was one day where I made, 45 phone calls. And it's not necessarily a sales pitch, but it kind of is. I'm not selling anything, but I'm reaching out and seeing if, you're interested in my project. Okay, you are. I'll send you the documents. Okay, you got XYZ. I need to follow up with him on Tuesday. Oh, I called this person, and now they've told me a whole different set of information. So
wow,
lots of details to tell each person, and then managing each person.
So that takes a lot of organization as well then. Wow.
Yeah. And I know it's like, it all sounds so high level. I feel like I have so much to share that I'm almost not hitting the correct points. But with construction, there's phases, like I mentioned before. And when I get out into the construction site, it kind of changes. It won't be so much attention to detail, but it's your ability to manage people and people older than you, people that are a little bit maybe more hot-headed than you, and if people get into an argument on site, how can you manage that conflict? You have to multitask even more on site because things come up. It's a construction site after all, so there's a lot of safety hazards and random people coming through, and you have to manage a lot of different hazards in a construction site than when I'm sitting at my desk. So
absolutely, I can imagine. So when there's a project going on, do you find yourself mostly in the office and occasionally on site? Is there times where you're on site constantly? What's the balance with that and traveling to site versus the office?
So it depends on the company. So many different companies do it one way, others do it a different way. So I'll talk about the way that my company does it. I'm a project engineer, and there are two different tracks that I can go. I can be a field engineer or an engineer that focuses more on the financial and cost side of things. My company is really good about taking into account what it is that I prefer. And I kind of prefer that hands-on learning, hands-on experience. So I'm going to be in the field. So right now, it's kind of a weird situation where we've been helping a lot of the design aspects. But as soon as construction starts, I'll be out on site, and I'll be there from 6 a.m. till when work is done that day. So there won't be any going back and forth between the office. Even if I chose the financial side of things, I would be on site all the time, but I'd be in the trailer for most of the day. Whereas I'll be physically walking around the job site all day, every day, talking with the people building the job, talking with my superintendent who's managing me and everybody else. So the way they split it up too is that I'll run a certain amount of trades, and there will be many engineers like myself kind of tackling the job together.
I can only imagine the moving parts, and you're getting emails and phone calls and talking to people. Yeah, you know what, ever since I've known you from years ago, and I never had you as a student, I just knew you from like volleyball, but honestly, you've always had a really strong sense of communication, and obviously that's a huge part of your job. Are there experiences or things students can do to get more natural with their communication? I mean, you must be communicating not only by phone, but by email and in person. Like, how did you gain that communication part of things that you maybe naturally had in that? Is there anything you can pinpoint that helped you with that students might be able to plug in to better their communication?
Yes, so I will say that communication is one of those things that we can always do a better job of. First thing that came to mind was actually sports. I feel like because I played sports, I learned a lot about what it takes to be a part of a team, and not only, physically, but the different people on your team react to stress differently, react to your coach yelling at you differently, react to reward differently, winning, losing, all of that stuff. So I think just being surrounded by different personalities a lot can help. Managing conflict, if people get in a fight on your team, things like that. I think that's where I learned a lot of that, because at the end of the day, the goal is to win. It's to work together. So the faster you can overcome those challenges as a group, the faster you'll be able to work as a team. And I think if you're not athletic or you have no interest in sports, I think just getting involved with any group, any group that you're interested in is important. And on the other side of things, I think what really helped me is just I'm a big list person. So I'm constantly making lists, constantly checking things off lists. And I feel like as my tasks grew at my job, that I was like, well, I need to keep track of everything. So I just am really good at knowing what needs to be done because I'm always writing it down in front of me. That's not the only method. Other people are really good at this without having to do that, but knowing what you have to do is also key.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing all that information. And I love you gave a little plug to get involved in school. I like that. So I know that I'm taking more of your time than I promised. Thank you, Kendall. One last thing then, if you were looking back at your high school experience and not saying you would do anything over in that, would you give yourself or current high school students any advice on anything before we kind of send off and say our thanks?
Um, yeah, I guess when I was in high school, I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a surgeon. I was dead set on it, and I kind of blew off other opportunities to learn about other careers. And now here I am, a project engineer at a construction company, something I never, ever considered. So I guess my advice is to really take the time to think about what it is you like to do. A lot of my daily activities revolve around, like you said, communicating with other people on my team, calling people, getting information I need from other people, working with people a lot. So if that's not for you, you might not know that until you get into the position. So reaching out to people with jobs that you think you want, reaching out to people's parents that you know, talk to your friends and what their parents do and see if that's something you like. Be open to hearing about everything, because there might be a job that is a perfect fit for you that you don't even know exists.
Well said. Thank you for bringing that up. And honestly, that's a great way to segue into our thanks to you. This is exactly the reason we're doing these, is simply to open up students' eyes to all the different jobs. And honestly, I had no idea that your job existed as well. Not that it's not needed, but I just never thought about it because I was in my little science world, So thank you for opening my eyes and our students' eyes in that, and for your time today. We are so appreciative.
Of course, you're very welcome. And I know I talked a lot about different aspects of my job, and I might not have been super clear. If you ever have any questions, or if anyone watching this has questions, please feel free to reach out to me also.
Awesome. Well, we'll take you up on that, and I'll get them in touch with you if they have any questions. So, ladies and gents, Kendall Riechman, thank you so much for your time, Kendall.
Thank you.